And you're going to find, however far we can go, you're going to find some pretty amazing stuff, just starting with Matthew 25:1. So we'll take a look at it, reading it, and it's always interesting to see how the different translators translate things as well. And as we went over this before, the big bombshell was the fact that the bride and bridegroom, that those are two separate words, instead of just meeting the bridegroom. So we already went over that, but we will talk about that as we go. So this verse is, then shall be likened the kingdom of heaven unto 10 virgins who took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom and the bride. That was wonderful. That was Jennings' translation. And then King James didn't even put the bride in there, just said the bridegroom. Wonderful. Just kind of keeping that bride out of there, pay no attention to that word. So in taking a look at my notes, like I said, I try not to be irritated, but sometimes I just can't help it. Like, come on, this is terrible that you would keep some of this stuff out. All I can do now is just laugh because it's just absurd to me. So the very first word, so if you're looking at my chart, if you guys can see it here, I have all of the words that I decided to put down. So this kind of makes it a little bit easier for us. And we'll see, maybe I can just try to highlight, and hopefully it won't split words, so that I can show you what the roots are and we can go from there. So the very first word on this is then, afterwards, and next. At least that's the way it would be, the mechanical, what's behind, or what the meaning is. So it was translated as then. So then, afterwards, and next. Keep that in mind. And when we're looking at this, the root is a hey. It's exactly actually how it's written. This is what they're saying the root is. But the information that is contained within it, we have actually the word judge, dalet, yod, nun. We have the word for hand, yod, yad, the hand, the work of the hand, the open hand that gives and has power. And then we have, and this I found interesting because the Spirit said, did you see this? We have a hey and we have a noon. And that means lo and behold. And what do we have in the middle of lo and behold? We have a yod, dalet, yod. So we have these twin visions that one vision is the door to the next vision. Stuck between lo and behold. Lo, there are two visions that are connected by a door. So mother, because that is a pattern of the covenant between the pieces being divided in the middle. So you've got mother on one side, father on the other. The vision of mother takes you through the door of the inner man to connect you to the vision of father. So that's a little bit more advanced. You wouldn't normally see that, but that is also in there. Mm-hmm. And again, connecting it to power. So there's something that's there. And then the next word we go into, resemble, liken, and compare. So this is, then shall likened the kingdom, the way Hebrew and Aramaic is written, and a little bit different than the way we do it in English. We do things backwards in English. And in Hebrew, this word, the root would be dalet mem he. But in Aramaic, it changes to an aleph. And this is one of those profound changes in coming over from Hebrew and Aramaic, that we have the aleph on the suffix, which means becoming one and having the Christ anointing. And this is in resembling. But we also have the tav added in front. So we have the covenant of mother through the condition love, or AKA the golden rule, that allows us to resemble something and be in the likeness of what? The kingdom. So it's letting us know, in connecting this likeness to the kingdom, is that there's a principle within the kingdom that has to do with mother and the condition love, meaning I am going to treat you how you would want to, how I want to be treated. And so there's a level of loving kindness that is already generated, and that's a likeness to the kingdom. But the kingdom itself is where we see the utha suffix. So Mother's love is likened to the kingdom, but isn't exactly the kingdom, because the kingdom within, the malach, the king and queens, because the kingdom is within, is the suffix utha, which means connecting ourselves in humility and meekness to the Father, his covenant of unconditional love, and obtaining the Christ anointing as one that has a thousandfold measure, has been instructed, and so they teach. They are teaching shepherds, they have the language of light, and they speak revelation. So I love how it says that there's a likeness to Mother's is like it, but the real kingdom is this whole principle. So it tells you, compares the two of there's a likeness, but then here's the real thing, guys. This is the real thing. And then it relates it to heaven. So we know the principle as within, so without, as above, so below. And I think we've talked about this before, but as a reminder, in Hebrew, the word heaven is shamayim. In Aramaic, it's shamaya. So if you look at the principle of the linear aspects of Hebrew, the linear aspects say you need to go through mother's instruction, and then there's a vision that will be given so that you can go through father's instruction. It's very linear in order. This one is Maya, and it's Shamaya, Shamaya, Shin Mem Yod Aleph. So there's a oneness in connectivity that only happens when we marry the two of them together between the Hebrew and Aramaic. But you have to go through the linear fashion first before being able to take the divine feminine energy and be able to move it in the spiral concept of weaving ourselves together as one, connecting heaven and earth together, because both are needed. You have to have both, because that's how creation, that's the pattern that we see in creation based upon who we are in duality, that it takes both to create that oneness aspect. And so again, how do we get to that place? Well, we have to have a door come and present this to us. The door is always a representation of a shepherd that would lay across the sheepfold. I am the door, I am the good shepherd, laying across the sheepfold the door to protect those that are still in process. You can take a look at it. We've shared before what the gardeners are. They are the defenders of the people as we are still in process, because every life has value to it. Every life matters. And so we know that you have to go through the consuming fire and the water in order to be part of the Shemaya, because it's these things that purify us, because the Sheen consumes that lesser beast ego nature, the fallen flesh, and then we are refreshed with the living water teachings that build us. You noticing how I have a hard time? I can't quite highlight the letters.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part.
Oh, yeah.
I like this, but I just may have to flip back and forth. Makes me a little frustrated, but that's okay. So in having Shem in the middle of it, let's go right here, having Shem in the middle of it, we know that this is a mark and an appellation. And I love this because, I don't always look up words, and I'm a word person, and you think I would, but there are words that we just don't use anymore. We have really simplified the way that we communicate with one another. And I think a lot of that had to do with television. There's a lot more images that are shown to us to get ideas and concepts. Whereas when they didn't have television and they didn't have a way to be able to communicate ideas, words were very huge. You read writings, from the earlier in the 19th century or in the 18th century in English, and it's a mouthful. I mean, it's very difficult to process that information. So I'm guilty of that. But I guess it's not too bad, because I'm picking up Hebrew and Aramaic, or I'm remembering Hebrew and Aramaic, so we can drop the English. But an appellation is a name or a title. So a title being given, and we have been calling these of the name. These are those that are of the name because they've gone through the process where they have honor, authority, and character. They're in a very conspicuous position, even though they have a mark of individuality as well. So I like that, because that actually explains us being fractals of source, that it's our attention as consciousness to have a mark of individuality, but yet we are still of one.
Mm-hmm.
We're still of one. And so for me, the Aramaic overlay on top of the Hebrew makes a lot more sense in this, in being able to comprehend what the process of becoming one looks like, because we are still fractals of source, having those points of attention. So we don't lose ourselves in the process. What we do is we gain. We don't lose anything. We gain oneness and having access and the connectivity that comes from that. And that's huge, but we still have our point of attention. And that sets us out of the waters of chaos to the waters that are above. And it's also, Shamaim is where the celestial bodies revolve. And, we've said many times, and many of us know the scriptures, that we're seated in heavenly places. Well, here you go. The door comes to be able to present this to you through the process of understanding what is the kingdom, and that it is within, being connected to the Father, marked in unconditional love. And this is really what then seats you up there in a place of having honor, authority, and character, because you went through the process of the living water and the living fire to consume what needed to be gotten rid of, and to refresh and restore you through the living water teachings back to where you were, as if the fall into the lesser state never happened. But we gained an amazing amount of experience while we've been here. Then we actually get into the 10 virgins. And I found this really interesting, because when I first looked at the word, I knew that the Ein Samek Resh meant 10. That's pretty simple. It just means 10. But we have a lamed added in front of it. So we have instruction that is being given to the 10. So a teaching shepherd, staff of authority, that is going to come to instruct the way of the waters, right? As being the door, and again, using lamed, spelling it out, lamed, of what this teaching shepherd is all about, is coming to the 10 to instruct them, so that they have the eyes to see how to be supported, propped up, hedged in, receiving the wedding ring, because it's a symbol, it's symbolic of the wedding ring, and having a shield of thorns that surrounds and protects them to raise them up from being poor and destitute to first fruit leaders. Okay, so there's a lot more than just 10. But when I went and dug deeper, because that's just what I like to do, I'm a little nerd in that area, but it's because there's so much information. I want to get everything I can. I just want to squeeze it. So it also means, the base of this word means a gathering, collection, and union. I didn't know that. That was fresh manna for me today when I was looking at this, going into it deeper, going, this is actually talking about the instruction of union, which totally makes sense, because we're talking about the wise and foolish virgins that are preparing for marriage, and becoming one. We've already went through that, the door of the Shemaiah, to be able to teach us this way of one. So it's a group collection of preparing us. And this also, does connect to tithing, and the 10%. And Ken has always talked about that the Father will always have his tithe. He always has at least 10% that are set apart for him to be able to do and continue to lift humanity up, to do the part that they have been assigned to do at any time, at any place within the world. There's never not a tithe here, because it would be a horrible place if there wasn't at least 10% of the population as light workers around here. We none of us would want to be here. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, the custom, of course, is the minion. But
right,
you can't do anything without the minion.
right. And I think that's
So,
interesting that they'll call it a minion, and then it's dominion, having dominion. to be able to meet. But
Mhm.
it's also so that there is dominion on the earth from those who are set above, who are
Mm.
affecting the lower waters of chaos by bringing an element of shalom in it, so this inverse isn't totally overrun.
Mhm.
Huge.
Mhm.
It's just a concept that I don't know how much we think about that.
Mhm.
Sometimes I don't, but thank goodness the tithe has been here.
Yeah.
It could be a lot worse. And then we have the word for virgin. This is interesting because we went over this word when we were looking at the 144,000, and they were the Bethula.
Mhm.
They had an aleph. It was a Bethula. So you go from the process of the hay, Bethula with a hay, to Bethula with an aleph, because the revelation of the Father's teaching is what then makes you to be able to be set apart in preparation. But in this case, these
It's a
virgins,
fallen moon. Yeah.
yeah, they have a fallen noon.
Mm.
So that is why the bride and the groom are coming to be able to instruct them, Lamed, instruct these 10, because they're still in their fallen flesh. They haven't found the spiritual path yet. They're in the material world, but because the noon has the constituent letters are noon, vav, noon, it lets you know that people aren't stuck. They do get to choose. That's the thing about duality, is that you have both that are there, and what face is presenting itself right now is the one in the material realm. That's who these are. They're on the material path, they have their fallen flesh, and they haven't found the spiritual path yet.
Yeah.
So we've already set forth a precedent that everyone is the bride. They just don't know it yet. So these 10 don't know it. They're
Yeah.
in the material world. They haven't woke up yet. They have no
Yeah.
idea. And this is where I think that this transition period of the 144,000, when they're activated, is that those are in that face of that fallen flesh material realm are going to be looking and going, whoa, okay, what's going on here? Because it's going to be something as a profound shift where it's going to get their attention. Because
Mhm.
why else would the bride and the groom come unless something happened, and they're looking and they're wanting to be prepared, because they didn't. And we'll get to that, and it'll make sense as we go further on into this, so explaining it, because it is written that way. So the very next one is a hey vav is what is written, and it has the meaning of that, those, and who. So the virgins who, or those. And in this situation, here this is the beautiful part. So we just looked at that they were in the fallen flesh, right? They were in the material realm. But then look, so it was a hey vav. So the revelation came. They haven't connected to it yet, but what is being presented to them is the spiritual path that gives them the power that they need, the yod, which it won't let me highlight, to overcome their fallen flesh. And that is why the teaching shepherds come, is to give them this revelation of the spirit path. And then the hen, hey noon, literally means lo and behold. Lo and behold, virgins, the teaching shepherds are going to come to bring you this revelation, the power you need to overcome your fallen flesh nature. That's awesome. So again, this is a place where everyone will be able to be presented this information. It's not like they're not going to know. Everyone is going to be presented this information. How is it going to happen? I don't know. There's a supernatural element there, and I haven't been given the foresight to see that yet. I just know what I see in what has been written. And it seems pretty fantastic, and I'm waiting for that to take place, because even digging out the transfiguration of Yeshua and seeing what happened to Moshe, there's something really spectacular that is going to happen,
Mm.
where these people that haven't paid attention before because of being in that face of the material realm are going to, lo and behold, Wow, look, there's revelation coming. And they'll take note and take notice of the spiritual path that is being presented to them. I've always felt like it needed to have something supernatural occur for people to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Often so, yeah.
Yes, I mean, that's how some of my journeys began. It was a big, like, what the heck was that?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a
Right.
flip in consciousness, and
Yep,
then your whole life changes, and you're like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and having said that, that leads us right to the next word. This is just how the beauty of this unfolds. So this next word means to take, receive, and hypocrite, which I think is interesting. That's just how the dual language works. Take, receive, and hypocrite. But what we are seeing in here, so the root of it is nun, semek, bet. But right off the get-go, the first thing I want to point out is miracle. Nun semek means miracle, a flag and a sign. So just what I was saying about these teachers of light that are going to come to present, there's something that they are going to be a sign, and there's going to be a miracle, and there will be a banner and a flag to, hey, here's something going on. And what we also see is the judges. We have Dan again. So the judges, aka the gardeners, that are coming, that have had this miraculous change with them, are going to be a sign and a beacon as a flag to others so that they can build themselves with the bet. Because those that were the miracle did do this. They took what the door presented, they followed the spiritual path, they became wed, they have the signet ring, they've been propped up and supported, and they built through the 222, the two paths, 22 letters, they built love. I also find it interesting that the last two letters, Semek Bet, it means to surround or to go around, which is, I used to say, and I still do, well, I guess if I don't get it this time, I get to go around the mountain one more time and go through that test. And then I started connecting it to a reincarnation. It's like, well, I didn't quite do this, or, well, they didn't quite build love, so they're going to have to go around one more time so that they can build love. Because that's really what we're talking about, to go around the bob. You got to build love, you got to figure that out, and you're going to have to find the spiritual path to build love. That is the whole reason why we're here. It's as simple as it can be. But it also means an old man and a grandfather. So we're talking about wisdom that's there.
this is like learning to love yourself. Would that be?
Absolutely. Because in learning to love yourself, and not through conditions, not like, well, Carrie, if you mind and do all your, cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that you do all this stuff, then I will love you. Is learning to love yourself unconditional, because that is the only way that we can manifest it externally. It has to start within us first, hence why the kingdom is within. That unconditional love is something that we find within ourselves. And when we find it within ourselves, that's when we manifest it externally. So those that are coming at the very beginning, it was a really good question. Those who are coming in the beginning, the bride and the groom, we'll get there. That's the last word. When they come, they are the ones that are going to be bringing this because they became it. So their frequency is going to be resonating in that oneness, the unified field of oneness. They're going to be resonating to that frequency because they found it. They found it within because they went through the steps.
It's like learning to face yourself without judgment.
Yes. Accepting you in the totality of your being.
Negative.
The light and the dark. Because we are in systems of duality, and we are potential of both. This is where 0 point is so amazing, because you're right there smack dab in the middle, potential to go one way or the other, good or evil, but choosing to be in that middle place, that narrow path between both sides, but yet you can see both sides because a creator can do both. A sovereign can do both. And when you've learned from both sides of those, you choose to render yourself clear and stay in that place of 0 point where your potential energy, but you choose not to be kinetic in it. And it's a completely different frequency. So when we look at this word too, we're talking about, it's good for us to see about the hypocrisy or being a hypocrite. Because in this process, well, let's define it. So a hypocrite is one who indulges in hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. It's from the Greek word meaning acting of a theatrical part. So actors and actresses are hypocrites. That's kind of funny. Because they're pretending to be something that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
To play a part and to pretend. And I find it interesting that when you trace it back, this word, it means under, decide, and judge. You're under judgment.
Well, that seems, if I might have, seems to me like it's anything other than center is hypocrisy. I don't know if that's what you just said.
No,
like
I don't think anything outside of that is hypocrisy. I think that in what I am seeing about this here is when you're pretending to be something that you're not. You're playing a part, but that doesn't mean that's who you are. Meaning you're faking it. And to a degree, then I guess we would be called hypocrites, or we would be hypocrites, because if we're playing a part and not realizing that we're creators, we don't really know who we are.
We're all hypocrites, that's for sure. We all have masks.
We don't know. We don't know who we are. And so we play parts. But the goal is to try to be the authentic self and not wear a mask. And that's why those who come as the signals, beacons, miracles, as the judges, have found the place where they are as I am. They are no longer a hypocrite. They've gone through the steps and they've built love. Because really, the place of hypocrisy is love with conditions. Because that already is setting forth a way of judging and separating people instead of realizing that we're all one. Treating people differently, judging them, setting them apart, treating them as if they're less. So when the judges come on scene, they're going to have a standard measurement that they are walking in that will be resonating differently than the rest of the world, because they have gone past that place of playing a role, being a hypocrite, because they took what they needed, they received it, and they walked the path so they could find themselves again in the totality of who they are, the full revealing of who they are, no longer wearing a mask, just as I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then we have the very next word, which this one tickled me. I was trying to figure out why this word, why they spelled it the way they did, about a lamp and a light. Because in reality, when you trace it back, it really is. So it's lamed mem pe, lamp. That's literally how you say it. It's lamp with these extra letters on the other side. And I like, well, that's really interesting. It's literally transliterated as lamp. But the root of it, this is what I find fascinating. Well, there's lots of things that are fascinating on this, but the one thing that I find most fascinating is that this word has the dalet added in the root. The root doesn't have a dalet, but it's written with the dalet added. So the root would be a lamed, mem, pei, aleph, resh. No, hold on. Oh, okay, now I got it. Oh, this is good. This is good. It's lamed, mem, pei, aleph, dalet, aleph. That's the root. Let me say that one more time. It's a lamed, mem, pei, aleph, dalet, aleph. So what are we missing? We're missing the aleph.
Yeah.
They're lamps. They don't have the aleph. They don't have a sense of oneness in there.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, fascinating. But of course, that connects everything that we were saying before about why the teaching shepherds need to come. They need to be able to teach this to them. And so these lamps, because this is really has to do with who we are, they don't have the aleph within them, but they have a door. But they're missing some key points that they are going to be given. The two visions of mother, the one of mother and father that reveals. So mother reveals father's vision of power while they're in the flesh.
Yeah.
But here's the little secret part that it tickled me pink. Lamed, mem, pei, dalet. It literally is lamed that has the pei in the middle of it. The instructions of the mouth that brings revelation through the sacred languages meant for you on the inside. Can you see that? Lamed, mem, dalet is how you spell the symbol through the constituent letters lamed. That's how you spell it. But in this case, the pei has been added in the middle, the root of the word. That's the place where source dwells within us, is in the center of our being. So this is showing us that the instruction, that the sacred languages, that the mouth that brings revelation is meant for the inside of us. Hence why the very next is a dalet. You must open the door to inside of you to be able to receive mother's vision, her powerful vision that is going to reveal the father's vision to you while you're in the fallen flesh. This also has a meaning to shine. So when we were talking about the supernatural changing of individuals that are going to be coming, this lamp is meant to shine. And the very first letter is a lamed, which is connected to the language of light and love, the instructions of your heart in order to shine.